As the sun rose over the Chesapeake on September 28, 2020, the teams from Nauticos and Dynamic Aviation made their final preparations for gathering critical information regarding Amelia Earhart's final flight. Aboard the Nellie Crockett, under the command of Captain Ted Parrish, the Nauticos team made preparations to accurately recreate the end-to-end high-frequency voice communication link between Earhart's L-10E and Itasca. By measuring and recording signal strength and distance relative to Itasca, they also recreated and measured the end-to-end radio beacon length sent from the Coast Guard cutter, which would allow Earhart to determine a line of bearing to Itasca by obtaining a minimum on her Bendix RDF loop antenna. The former Oyster Bay boat would soon cross under the Chesapeake Bay Bridge for the open waters of the Atlantic and play the role of the Coast Guard cutter Itasca.
Calling Itasca. We must be on you, but cannot see you. But gas is running low. Have been unable to reach you by radio. We are flying at altitude 1,000 feet.
The Nauticos team has always maintained the theory that originated with the legendary pilot and writer Elgin Long. Amelia Earhart ran out of fuel only minutes from locating the airfield on Howland Island, where the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Itasca was on station, receiving her last radio transmissions. In 2017, Nauticos completed a bittersweet expedition to the Pacific, mapping a search area of over 2,000 square miles of ocean floor, but did not locate Earhart's aircraft. So the team went back to work, developing a fresh approach to the existing data while planning to gather new information.
Whose expertise are we missing? What expert can bring that one little tool that might add to this and give us what the answer is, where we should be looking?
Nauticos has always utilized multiple data points to support their crashed and sank theory. Among them are the radio propagation information garnered from hours of interviews and research from the logbooks of the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Itasca and eyewitness reports from those aboard the cutter on July 2, 1937.
We're what's known as the crash and sank theory, which was first publicized a lot by Elgin Long in his book, Amelia Earhart, The Mystery Solved. Well, it's not been solved, but his theory is that she simply ran out of gas, had to ditch in the ocean somewhere near Howland Island. And that airplane eventually sunk, and it's in the bottom of the ocean waiting to be found.
Okay, basically there's three different main primary theories that have come together to define our search area. We were first approached by Elgin Long, introduced to Elgin, who brought his theory, which is based on studies of navigation and fuel for the airplane and the airplane itself, and all the things that an airline pilot brings with his experience, and the research that he had done, all the people he talked to, and he had defined a search area. We then turned the search area over to the guys at Rockwell Collins, and they did a radio analysis based on the radio transmissions that had been recorded on the Itasca, and did all sorts of things, including recreating the radio setup, talking to experts from that time period as to how they would judge a radio signal and that sort of thing, and then tried to fit those signal strengths that they would come up with into a scenario, and generated the best fitting scenario and to find a box from that. And then we took the renav, which integrated all sorts of things, Elgin's data, some of the radio data, data that we knew about navigation capabilities, errors that were in navigation systems of the time period, that sort of thing. Put it all into a giant Kalman filter, which then weights the different inputs and comes up with a suggested search area. And coincidentally, all those areas pretty much overlap.
Since 1999, the retired Collins radio engineers have focused on determining the technical parameters and performance of each of the system components comprising Earhart's high-frequency or HF communication link.
As she was flying in towards Howland Island, The radio operators on the Itasca were recording signal strengths, and they were going S2, S3, S4, S5, S5 being the loudest. In an interview with Chief Radioman Leo Bellertz in the early 70s, he was saying she was so loud that he looked out on the deck and looked up expecting her to fly through the rigging. Now, given those parameters of what frequency she was on, what time of day, what kind of radio she had, we've done an extensive analysis, over 3,000 hours of statistical analysis, modeling, actual field experiments, and basically back calculating the distance between the Itasca and the Lockheed L-10E for each one of her transmissions. And just that analysis alone comes in and brings that signal at those last transmissions very close to Howland Island. And though we're not at liberty to say how far, but she was close. She was getting close. In fact, in one transmission, she actually heard the Itasca at 0800 in the morning.
Initially, we used computer programming, computer modeling to calculate what these different parameters would produce and then add all these things together to produce a distance. Well, one of the big questions is, can you trust the computer program? How do we know it represents reality?
Obtaining and restoring all of the scarce 1937 equipment prevented such tests until now.
It's hard to find some of this old equipment. For one thing, it was very expensive back in the 30s. They didn't make very many of them, and then even fewer of them survive today. The thing that really kicked us off here was the Western Electric 13C transmitter. This is the only one that anybody has ever heard of or saw. I was fortunate enough to be able to buy it and restore it. Without that, it would leave a big gap or hole in trying to do what we're doing today.
The team needed two more critical items to implement the test. An aircraft similar to Earhart's Lockheed 10E and a sea-going vessel to simulate the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Itasca. In March of 2020, the Nauticos team met with Dynamic Aviation CEO Michael Stoltzfus, his father Carl Stoltzfus, and Director of Safety Rod Moyer. The team from Dynamic Aviation was interested, but when Carl offered the asset of their prized Beech 18, the deal was sealed.
The look of the two airplanes is very, very similar. Because of that, we can put the same style V antenna on the airplane and have the same kind of engine noise and background that would have been present when she made her transmissions.
This particular airplane, when we got it, didn't have a name. How could you name the airplane anything else? And Miss Amelia is really the name for this airplane. It's important to understand Amelia Earhart, her thinking, what got her to the place where she was willing to take what was acknowledgeably high risks.
When they helped us understand the commitment that they have had for decades, and when they helped us understand how they think about how they go about the work, we very quickly then moved to saying, okay, these are the guys that we want to be with. These are the guys that we consider not only partners in solving some mystery, but these guys will become our friends.
Dynamic Aviation owns a 200,000 square foot heavy maintenance and modification center, engine shop, and privately owned airport. Rod Moyer, Brad Holliday, and Mike Morin joined the effort to configure Ms. Amelia with equipment racks, HF antenna, and a rare direction finding loop antenna provided by Nauticos. During the recreation of Amelia's last flight, the engineers will be measuring the signal strength and distances for each of her last transmissions. In order to accommodate the array of radio gear that matched the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Itasca, the team needed a seaworthy vessel of adequate size, capable of offshore operation. The selection of the Nellie Crockett was the brainchild of Nauticos volunteer and sailor Jeff Whiteman, a longtime friend of the Parrish family and accomplished ocean sailor.
She's got plenty of deck space, a very large hold area down below. She's very historic looking, which is kind of in keeping with a historic project.
The Nellie Crockett is a Chesapeake Bay oyster biboat built in 1925. She's considered one of the best preserved examples of this type of vessel. Whiteman and Nellie Crockett's owner, Ted Parrish, have been working with the radio engineers to develop a plan for outfitting the historic vessel and safely navigating her offshore for the tests. Captain Parrish is a licensed master mariner and Delaware Bay pilot. The team from Dynamic Aviation, Nauticos, and Nellie Crockett came together in Bridgewater and Cape Charles, Virginia in mid-September 2020 to bring the radio tests to life. Over a 2.5-week period, the tests provided critical data about the radio transmissions between Amelia's Lockheed Electra and the Itasca during her final hours. The support for the Virginia radio test came from adventurer and explorer Alan Eustace, who had previously been a part of the 2017 Earhart expedition with Nauticos CEO David Jordan.
Alan Eustace is a truly remarkable person. He's an engineer. He's very smart. He's usually the smartest person in the room, but he doesn't pretend to be. He likes to hear what other people think and then weigh their opinions. The thing about Alan is he's very thoughtful and very intelligent. And when he's presented with a problem like this, he really doesn't let it go. And so he stuck with us after the expedition and is supporting us now in this endeavor to learn more of the technical aspect of the radio signals. And I think he's going to really be interested in digging into the analysis and seeing what we learn from it.
For me, solving that mystery, what happened, where did she end up, how close to the island was she, If we could find that aircraft, we would know a lot. We would know, and especially if we can find that aircraft and bring it back up to the surface, I mean, that would be a symbol of exploration. That would be a symbol of somebody breaking down barriers. It would be a symbol of an amazing woman, an amazing time. It would elevate her story, which, by the way, for a story that's 80 years old, Amelia, all you have to do is say Amelia, and everybody remembers, everybody knows. Most people that, weren't even born anywhere near that remember Amelia Earhart. And so for us to solve this mystery, where there are thousands of competing stories about what happened,
the coast of Virginia had been selected for a variety of reasons. The proximity to the test aircraft and the requirement of a saltwater environment to recreate the Earhart flight were first and foremost. September is the height of the Atlantic hurricane season and afforded limited weather windows for the test. With bad weather moving into the area later in the week, there was limited time to complete the task. Today would be the day.
So we've decided to interleave the two tests. So we'll be doing 7,500 tests while they're circling, and then when they stop circling and move on to the next waypoint, we'll have a voice on 3105 test, and with that interleaving is making it more complex. So now it'll be incumbent upon the aircraft in communicating air to ground exactly what they want us to do at each segment of that test. But if we're successful, we'll have a full day of data. It may take a little longer, but we'll have all the data that we need so that we can shut her down tonight and not have to worry about bad weather for the day tomorrow.
The Nellie Crockett would proceed several miles offshore, north, around the Delmarva Peninsula, and hold station while the aircraft November 18 Gulf flew east 130 nautical miles. Sue Morris provided the Amelia voice for the signal strength voice test and would transmit Amelia's final words at precise intervals and distances from the Nellie Crockett.
We are on the line of position 157-337. We'll proceed this message on 6210. Wait, we are running north and south. We are on the line of position 157-337. We'll repeat this.
Yeah, okay, we just heard her voice, and I see it on the graph here now.
Okay, keep talking, Sue. Continue transmitting. Wait, position 157-337. We'll repeat this message on 6210. Wait, we are running north and south.
Continue, Sue.
We are on a line of position.
Okay, we are copying now.
We'll repeat this message on 6210. Wait, we're running north and south.
We're transmitting okay.
Repeat, Sue. Continue.
We are on a line of position 157-337. We'll repeat this message on 6210. Wait, we're running north and south.
7.5 miles range boat, 3.5 miles disappearance.
Brian McCoy, flying right seat, coordinated the calls from Sue Morris and provided the integral link between the boat and plane as the test proceeded.
Okay, that was about an S6.
There were actually two systems operating simultaneously. The first was the 1937 vintage equipment, which replicated the voice transmitting to the Nellie Crockett and the continuous wave, or CW signal for direction finding on the aircraft. The second system consisted of modern, high-precision receivers, GPS, and a calibrated signal strength measuring antenna. Computers on each end, the aircraft and the boat, recorded all the measurement data at 1-second intervals throughout the test flights, while multi-channel digital audio recorders captured voice, data, and cabin aircraft dialogue.
The radio in front of me here is on HF, high frequency. It's on 7299, which is within the amateur band, which we're licensed for. So that's a HF radio, at least it's being used as an HF radio. This one here is up on UHF. So this radio is our air-to-ground and ground-to-air communications. So we're running on 443.8 megahertz on FM. Our plan is actually, if this link starts getting weaker where they're breaking up, then we'll switch over to what's called single sideband, and that'll extend our range even further to the aircraft. Main thing is to maintain communications with the aircraft.
Aboard the Nellie Crockett, Tom, Jeff, and Barry would monitor both the voice communication receptions from Amelia while transmitting the continuous Morse code signal alpha on the radio beacon.
It'll take them 2 minutes, standard 2-minute circle in the aircraft, and at which they'll be monitoring to see if they can get a minimum on the loop antenna. So this is the loop test.
Beginning a 2-minute turn.
We're getting good data. This is good. How far, Brian, are we? Oh, this is a good test. Yeah.
How's the record meter look?
Looks good.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're heading into a null. Yeah, right there it was. Boy, it's hard to hear it. We're coming back up out of the null.
The 7500 test was a huge success. We've gathered lots of data. We're circling at the right times and seeing if we get minimums. We're measuring the distances back to the Nellie Crockett, and we have a lot of great data that we've never had before, and that's really significant. And that was our priority test.
The new data gathered in the Virginia radio tests anchor the location of Amelia and her Electra, not long before she ditched into the ocean. That still leaves a substantial area to search, but it narrows the area considerably. The quest to discover her final resting place continues.
Amelia learned to fly a plane in 1921, when skyward meant a new frontier and aviation's time was young. Her parents said, "What can we do?" But they could not deny that Amelia was a woman who was not afraid to fly. she put her flying to the test. A transatlantic flight those days was hazardous at best. But lucky Lindy had his day, a legend in the sky. And Amelia was a woman who was not afraid to try. And I'm just this side of heaven. I didn't know the sky could sing. Now my heart is like a feather, lifting with the sound of wings. In June of '37, Amelia made her final flight. She tried to fly around the world to prove a woman might. In search of Howland Island, she got lost in sea and sky.